now ready to move on to the back side of the handout. Now, at the top of that handout, you're going to see that I have two fill-in-the-blanks for you. One involving parallel, one involving perpendicular. Now, just to make sure that everybody is on the right page on this one, let's go ahead and start and think about the words parallel and perpendicular and make sure that everybody has a picture in mind when they think about these two words. So, parallel is going to have two lines that look like that. When I look at those, I think about them as railroad tracks. They're two lines that will never cross. Perpendicular, on the other hand, we're going to be crossing, but in a very special way. These two lines are crossing at a 90-degree angle. Now, you'll notice that I put a little box there. If that's enough for you, great. If it's not, you can go ahead and say 90 degrees, just to make that comment that they have to cross at a 90-degree angle. So now that we have those two pieces of information, the question is, how do these ideas relate to the idea of slope? Well, let's start off with parallel here. If you look at parallel, if you think about a little mountain climber going up one of these mountains, and then another little mountain climber going up the other mountain, you're going to find that these two treks are going to be the same. So what that means then is that the slopes are going to be the same on these two lines. Another way of saying that is that the slopes are equal. However, when you're looking at perpendicular, you're going to notice that this time the slopes can't be the same. In my picture, I have one line that's going uphill and I have one line that's going downhill. So we need to have some kind of statement that describes the slopes in that world as well. Now, sometimes people memorize that the slopes are opposites. However, that isn't necessarily going to be enough to tell us the whole story. So you'll notice that I have two fill-in-the-blanks there. Let's write two different words to describe what's really happening here. The slopes are negative reciprocals. So if you had memorized a different way of thinking about this idea of perpendicular and slopes, my suggestion is to go ahead and memorize it this new way. The fact that perpendicular lines have slopes that are negative reciprocals of each other. That way then you know that both things have to be happening. If the negative isn't happening, you're not looking at two lines that are perpendicular. If the reciprocal idea isn't happening, you're not looking at two lines that are perpendicular. So just to make sure that everybody's on the right track on that one, let's just write down some numbers. So if I have the number 2/7, the negative reciprocal of that has to do two things. So the word negative says we need to change the sign. So the negative reciprocal of 2/7 would be negative, because this one is positive. Negative says change the sign, so we would have to have a negative. And then reciprocal means you're going to take your fraction and flip it. So 2/7 becomes 7/2. So the negative reciprocal of 2/7 is negative 7/2. Well, let's go ahead and do another problem. So -3. Well, -3, first off, we have to use the word negative. So change the sign. Our negative reciprocal is going to have a positive sign. And then we need to take the fraction and flip it. Well, as we look at the number 3, it doesn't look like a fraction right now, but we know that it is a fraction, and we've played this game multiple times. You take that 3 and write it over 1. So 3/1, now that it looks like a fraction, when we flip the fraction, we're going to get 1/3. So the negative reciprocal of -3 is positive 1/3. Now that we have that information, we're ready to do an example.